Baguette. A baguette is one of the most iconic breads in the world and is so deeply tied to French culture that it was added to the UNESCO list of intangible cultural heritage in 2022. It is a long, thin loaf with a golden, crackling crust and a soft, airy, chewy interior full of irregular holes. The dough is made from only flour, water, salt, and yeast, with no fat or sugar added. A properly made baguette has a crust that shatters when you press it and a crumb that is light but has some chew. It is eaten fresh on the same day it is baked, as it begins to go stale within hours. Sourdough. Sourdough is one of the oldest forms of bread still made today, with a history going back thousands of years. What makes it different from most other breads is that it uses no commercial yeast. Instead, it relies on a live culture called a starter, which is a fermented mixture of flour and water that contains wild yeast and bacteria. The bacteria produce lactic and acetic acids during fermentation, which gives sourdough its characteristic tangy flavor. The result is a thick-crusted, chewy loaf with a complex flavor that changes depending on how long the dough is fermented and what flour is used. Ciabatta. Ciabatta is an Italian bread that is surprisingly young compared to most traditional breads. It was created in 1982 by a baker in the Veneto region of northern Italy as a response to the growing popularity of the French baguette. The name means slipper in Italian, which refers to its flat, wide, elongated shape. Ciabatta dough is extremely wet and sticky, which is what creates the large, open, irregular holes inside the bread and its slightly chewy texture. The crust is thin and crispy, and the interior is soft and porous. It is widely used for sandwiches and is the bread behind the panini. Focaccia. Focaccia is a thick, flat Italian bread that sits somewhere between a bread and a pizza base. It is made with a generous amount of olive oil worked into the dough and drizzled on top before baking, giving it a rich, savory flavor and a slightly crispy bottom with a soft, pillowy interior. The surface is dimpled with fingertip indentations that hold olive oil and toppings in place during baking. It is most associated with Liguria in northwestern Italy, where the classic version is topped with coarse salt and rosemary. Different regions of Italy have their own variations with different toppings and thicknesses. Pita bread. Pita bread is a round, soft flatbread that is central to cooking across the Middle East, Greece, and North Africa. It is made from a simple wheat dough and baked at very high temperatures, which causes the two layers of the bread to separate from each other and create a pocket of air inside. This hollow pocket is what makes pita useful as an edible vessel for fillings like falafel, grilled meats, and vegetables. When pita is made without the pocket, it becomes a softer, thicker flatbread often used for wrapping or dipping into hummus and other spreads. Naan. Naan is a soft, leavened flatbread that is central to the cuisines of South Asia and Central Asia. It is traditionally baked by slapping the dough against the inner wall of a tandoor, which is a cylindrical clay oven that reaches extremely high temperatures. The intense heat cooks the bread in minutes, creating a soft, slightly charred surface with characteristic dark spots and a chewy, pillowy texture. Naan is typically made with white flour, yeast, or yogurt, and sometimes milk or egg to enrich the dough. It is most commonly brushed with butter or ghee after baking and served alongside curries and grilled meats. Roti. Roti is a simple, unleavened flatbread eaten daily across South Asia, East Africa, and the Caribbean. It is made from whole wheat flour called atta, water, and sometimes a small amount of fat, mixed into a soft dough and rolled out into thin rounds. Each round is cooked on a flat iron griddle called a tawa over direct heat until dark spots appear and the bread puffs slightly. Unlike naan, roti contains no yeast and is not enriched with dairy, making it a lighter, simpler bread. It is eaten with almost every meal across India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh as an everyday staple. Injera. Injera is a large, spongy, sour flatbread from Ethiopia and Eritrea that functions as both food and eating utensil at the same time. It is made from teff, a tiny ancient grain native to the Horn of Africa that is naturally gluten-free and packed with nutrients. The batter is fermented for several days before cooking, which gives injera its distinctly sour flavor and its signature spongy texture full of tiny holes on the surface. A meal is served by laying a large injera flat on a communal platter and placing stews and dishes on top. Diners tear pieces of injera and use them to scoop up the food. Challah. Challah is a beautiful braided bread from Jewish culinary tradition, eaten on Shabbat and Jewish holidays. It is an enriched bread made with eggs, oil, and sometimes honey, which gives it a soft, slightly sweet, golden interior and a rich, glossy, deeply browned crust achieved by brushing the surface with egg wash before baking. The braiding is not just decorative. The number of strands used in the braid carries symbolic meaning in Jewish tradition. Challah can have 3, 4, or 6 strands braided together. On Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, it is sometimes shaped into a round spiral rather than a long braid to symbolize the cycle of the year. Pretzel bread. Pretzel bread originates from southern Germany and has a history going back to at least the early medieval period. The most distinctive feature of a pretzel is not its shape, but the chemical process it goes through before baking. The dough is briefly dipped in a lye solution or baked baking soda bath before going into the oven. This alkaline bath is what creates the dark mahogany brown crust, the slightly chewy texture, and the characteristic flavor that is unlike any other bread. Traditional pretzels are topped with coarse salt crystals. The same dough and baking process is used to make pretzel rolls and pretzel loaves. Pumpernickel. Pumpernickel is a dense, dark, strongly flavored bread that originated in the Westphalia region of Germany. It is made from coarsely ground whole rye flour or rye berries and is traditionally baked at very low temperatures for an extremely long time, sometimes up to 24 hours. This slow baking process causes the natural sugars in the rye to caramelize deeply, producing the bread's almost black color and its distinctive earthy, slightly sweet flavor. Pumpernickel has almost no crust because the long baking process dries the exterior evenly. It is very dense, sliced thin, and eaten with toppings like smoked fish, cured meats, or strong cheese. Cornbread. Cornbread is a staple of American Southern cooking and has roots in the food traditions of Native American peoples who cultivated and cooked with corn long before European settlement. It is made primarily from cornmeal, giving it a slightly grainy texture, a golden yellow color, and a flavor that is earthier and less neutral than wheat bread. Cornbread can be sweet or savory depending on regional preference. Southern versions tend to be less sweet, while Northern American versions often contain more sugar. It is baked in a cast iron skillet, a square pan, or as individual muffins, and is traditionally served warm alongside chili, beans, and barbecued meats. Bagel. The bagel is a dense, chewy ring-shaped bread that originated in the Jewish communities of Poland before spreading across the world through Jewish immigration to the United States in the late 19th century. What gives bagels their distinctive chewy texture and shiny crust is the process of boiling the shaped dough rings in water before baking them in the oven. The boiling sets the exterior of the dough and limits how much it rises in the oven, resulting in the characteristically dense. Bagels are commonly topped with sesame seeds, poppy seeds, or everything seasoning and are most famously eaten with cream cheese and smoked salmon. Tortilla. The tortilla is a thin, flat, round bread that is fundamental to Mexican and Central American cooking. Corn tortillas are made from masa, which is dried corn that has been treated with an alkaline solution in a process called nixtamalization. This process changes the nutritional profile of the corn and gives the tortilla its distinctive flavor and pliable texture. Flour tortillas, which are more common in northern Mexico and the United States, are made from wheat flour and are softer, larger, and more pliable than corn versions. Tortillas are used to make tacos, enchiladas, quesadillas, burritos, and countless other dishes across Mexican cuisine. Lavash. Lavash is a thin, soft flatbread that is one of the oldest breads in the world, originating in the South Caucasus region that includes Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and parts of Iran and Turkey. Armenian lavash was inscribed on the UNESCO list of intangible cultural heritage in 2014. It is traditionally made by stretching the dough paper thin and slapping it against the inner wall of a toner, which is a clay oven built into the ground. The bread bakes in seconds and comes out soft and flexible when fresh. As it dries, it becomes cracker-like and brittle, and can be stored for months before being softened again with a splash of WAT.